Hi, good morning. Thank you to my new subscribers. And I do not, this is not a money channel for me, okay? I don't, it's not monetized. I do it just out of the goodness of my heart, if you will. And it gives me some pleasure to do music, but I also hoping I'm bringing pleasure to you and information you wouldn't maybe otherwise be have the time or the inclination to listen to, but just something a little extra that you maybe weren't aware of that might help you with your own growth, with your relationship with the Lord and so forth. So we finished on page 268 of the Swedenborg book, which I will continue on. I also want to turn you on to a gentleman who is part of the tribunal, who is in charge of the international tribunal. David, I'm trying to think of his name offhand. Why am I blanking on it? Hang on one second. Let me get that for you. Because he's really terrific with his understanding of what's actually going on in the world and what's going on behind the scenes. Steele is his name. And he talks about Donald Trump and how Donald Trump is in alliance with Japan, China, the Iranians, and there's 4 countries, Japan and China. Oh, the Russians, right, and the Iranians. I should have had my notes here in front of me, I'm sorry. But anyway, he, in stopping the Koreas from nuclearization, okay, and believes that Donald Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize for that. I don't know if they'll give it to him or not, but he should be given it if he's successful. And it's sort of behind the scenes that the top, the president and the top, the kings and queens and of these various countries agreed to do without the so-called generals knowing about it, if you will. And so you can listen to him and he'll tell you how that all came about. He's also in favor of getting out of the present system that we have in the United States, getting out of the two-party system and really forming a true democracy of the people. And we already have in place from Tesla and others how to have our own homes and energy and water and purification systems and food, and that we don't need to depend upon the beast, if you will, for all of these things. And overlying everything that happens in this world, because we're born in a Luciferian world, is the satanic control over certain peoples, about 8.5 thousand people only, okay? And here you have 7 billion people, okay, who should turn it around on them and throw them all in jail, or get rid of them, or offer them a pill, which many of them would be happy to take, I understand. So, and, you know, I forget the term that he uses, but it's not like outsourcing, but it's sort of engineering outsourcing. He brings up the John Deere company. You know, it costs $250,000 for a tractor that you can't even, you know, work on. It's kind of like all the cars. You can't work on them anymore because, you know, then they lose control. You know, they've got the software, and so you've got to go to them. No, you know, we should be able to 3D print something and plug something back into our tractor if we need to and be self-sufficient. You know, or have people tell us how to do it, and then, you know, they make a little money. But, you know, the Zionist people in the United States, which it took me a long time to understand that, because I thought, you know, a Jew was a Jew. Not realizing the history of the area. But I would get these comments from, you know, from people, the Zionists, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm not woken up to that yet. So apparently, you know, they run the banks. They're involved in everything, and they were involved in the Kennedy assassination, and that's something that's really, for me as an American, dear to my heart, especially since it happens to land on my birthday. So, you know, no matter how bad a person is, you don't just go off and shoot them, you know. And so the Zionists were involved with that, and also involved with 9/11. And so I'm not happy with that either. And you can read about all that, you know, on your own. I'm not going to go into it now, but anyway, so that's it. Take a look at him, Robert Steele, CIA. Kind of, and he's the guy that's in the head justice, if you will, of the International Tribunal of National Law that was just held in Westminster this year, and he's working on, you know, the biggest thing, you know, pedophilia, sex trafficking of women and children, and overlaying all that is the satanic, you know, rituals and so forth, which I mentioned in my last video, which you can listen to. So I won't rehash that, but yeah. And we have got to eradicate ourselves of this evil, and I believe that Donald Trump really wants to do that, and a lot of people are just ignorant, and it's going to take a while to wake these people up as to what is really going on. And I think that, and I've sent several tweets to Donald Trump about, you should have your own TV channel, your own news channel that's a truth channel, that is not bought and sold, you know, by the deep state, by the the people who are above government, like the Rothschilds and the DuPonts and so forth, and the Sassoons and Dugalls and all those people who run the Rothschilds, okay? They should not be involved, okay? And as far as money goes as well, be careful of Bitcoin. I heard that it's going to, maybe rise and it's going to fall because they've been bought and sold too. So, yeah. I'm still learning, and as I learn, I want to share with you guys. So, all right, so let's continue with the Swedenborg thing, and we're almost done with this. And I finished at the angels themselves confess they have no power but act only at the Lord's behest. So as far as an image is concerned, it's not like the likeness of another thing, but it's after likeness of it. which explains the wording, let us make a human in our image after the likeness. A person with a spiritual character is an image, but a person with heavenly character is a likeness or exact copy. Let me read that again. A person with spiritual character is an image, but a person with heavenly character is a likeness or exact copy. Genesis 1 deals with the spiritual person, Genesis 2 with the heavenly person. And the Lord calls the person of spiritual character or image a child of light, as he does in John. Those who walk in the dark don't know where they are heading. As long as you have light, believe in the light in order to be children of the light. John 12:35 and 36. He also calls for such a person a friend. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. John 15:14 and 15. And this is of Secrets of Heaven, by the way. But the persons of heavenly character or likeness he calls God's child in John. As many as did accept him, to them he gave the power to be God's children, to those believing in his name, who had the birth not from blood, but from flesh, will, or from a man's will, but from God's. John 1:12 and 13. As long as we are spiritual, we rule the outer self first, and from this the inner, as illustrated here in Genesis 1:26. And they will rule over the fish of the sea, and over the bird of the heavens, over the beast, and over the earth, and over every creeping animal that creeps on the earth. When we become heavenly, though, and do good because we love to, we rule the inner self first, and from it the outer. The Lord describes this as being true of himself. As it is true of him, it is so true of the heavenly type of person, who is a likeness of him. The words appear in David. You have made him rule over the works of your hands, all the things that you put under his feet, the flock and the herds, also the animals of the fields, the birds in the heavens, the fish of the sea, which travels the paths of the sea. Psalms 8:6-8. In this passage, animals receive the first mention, next the bird, then the fish of the sea, because the heavenly person proceeds from love, which belongs to the will. Things are different with the spiritual person, from whom the fish and birds come first, and the animals follow. Fish and birds are associated with intellect, which concerns itself with faith. Genesis 1:27, and God created the human in his image. In God's image he created them. Image comes up twice in this verse because faith, which belongs to the intellect, is called his image. But love, which belongs to the will, is called God's image. Love comes second in the spiritual person, but first in the heavenly person. Male and female, he created them. The inner meaning of male and female was familiar to the earliest church, although their successors lost touch with this secret when they lost sight of any deeper import to the word. So I think a lot of wisdom has been taken away from us. These earlier people found their greatest happiness and pleasure in marriage. Whenever they could possibly draw a comparison between something else and marriage, they did so in order to perceive the happiness of marriage in the other entity. Being people of depth, they enjoyed only the deeper aspects of things. Eternal objects were just for looking at. Their thoughts were occupied instead with the things those objects represented. External objects then were nothing to them, serving only as a springboard for reflection or inner realities. And these of the contemplation of heavenly realities, and so of the Lord, who were everything to them. The same process caused them to reflect on the heavenly marriage, which they could tell was the source of happiness in their own marriages. As a result, they called the intellect in the spiritual being male, and the will their female, and the two worked together, and they called it a marriage. So, intellect and will. The will, the female, the intellect, in the spiritual being male. The religion initiated the practice which became quite common of calling the church the daughter or virgin, as in the Virgin Zion, the Virgin Jerusalem, and also the wife, on account of its desire for good. For more of this, see the treatment of Genesis 2:24 and 3:15. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. On page